Hello, my friend, and welcome to another episode of Intentional Wisdom. This is the show where we talk about how to get better in every aspect of our lives, our fitness, our nutrition, our productivity, our parenting, our relationships, you name it, all in a quest to get better with age, which I really do believe is possible. I'm your host, Greg Campion, and I am psyched to bring you this conversation today with Andy Speer. Andy is a well-known strength and running instructor with Peloton. If you've been reading my newsletter or listening to this podcast for a while, you know that I love Peloton. It's a huge part of my fitness routine. Andy is the third Peloton instructor that I've had on the show now. I've been lucky enough to also have Matt Wilpers and Dennis Morton on the show. All three of these guys are awesome, so I really am grateful to have had them on. I wanted to have Andy on the show specifically because I've been binging his strength workouts this year on the Peloton app. As I mentioned in one of my recent newsletters, I've been on a mission this year to improve my body composition. And I've made some good progress in the first 6 months of the year, losing about 7 pounds of fat and gaining about 7 pounds of muscle. And I feel like I'm really just getting started. I'll link in the show notes here to an article where I explain my whole methodology, what I've done to accomplish that so far. And like I said, I feel like I'm just getting started. But the short version is a lot of it has come down to lifting weights. And my weightlifting this year has been almost exclusively done via Peloton strength classes, including Andy's Total Strength 60 workouts, and more recently, his Density 2 workout series. So I'm a huge fan of Andy and all the work he's done and how he's helped me personally to put more muscle on my body. So I definitely wanted to get him on the show to talk about that. In the conversation, we dive into strength routines and talk about lots of considerations for those looking to build strength and muscle, particularly after the age of 40. I'm in that age bracket. Andy's in that age bracket. So we commiserated, but also talked about some strategies to think about there. We also dive into Andy's background. He's recently started sharing more in public about his own personal story and some of the challenges that he's overcome along the way to success. So we dive into that and really get to know Andy quite a bit, which I personally enjoyed as well. All right, 2 things before we get going. If you want more detail on this conversation, I'll break it down even further in my newsletter. That'll come out a couple days after this podcast. Head over to gregcampion.substack.com to subscribe. It's 1 email every other week, and it's got all the best stuff of what I'm learning from impressive people like Andy. Lastly, if you enjoyed this podcast, please go ahead and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening or watching. And please go ahead and tap that 5-star review button if you feel like I deserve it. I know you probably hear this on every podcast you listen to, but listen, every review is super valuable. So if you can do that for me, just go and click that 5-star button. Just do it once and I'll never ask you again. I would be extremely grateful. So thank you in advance for doing that. Okay, enough intro. Here's my conversation with Andy Speer. Dude, I'm so psyched to have you here. And I was telling you before we hit record that I feel like I know you. I'm sure you get that all the time. But I think I probably have done, I haven't actually gone back and counted it up, but I think I've probably done like hundreds of workouts with you at this point. Strength workouts. I'm a big fan of the strength content. And so let me just thank you for all your efforts on that front, because I think you've personally been responsible, I think, probably for some real strength gains that I've made. So
that's
thanks
yeah,
for that.
No, it's my pleasure. And that's great to hear. And, anytime we talk to anybody, either, digitally or, especially in person, and we hear just the story or even a glimpse of their story, that full circle is really what, at least for me, and I know for a lot of, my instructor teammates, keeps us going. And keep really excited and passionate and grateful for what we have to do, because it can be a bit one-sided in our video. Even some classes we have members in it, but most of it's talking to a camera, right?
Yeah.
And so social media plays a big role in that kind of full circle. But when we get to meet people either in the studio or randomly on the street, those are the moments that I think I know I cherish quite a bit. And so, thank you. And it's honor to be here and be part of your fitness journey as well.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Yeah, I would say 95% of it is me appreciating you, and then 5% of it is me cursing at you sometimes. Because I'm like,
Take it.
come on, man, are you serious?
I'll take
Another
it. I'll
set?
take it. And I'm cursing myself at the same time, you know.
Yeah. I did. We'll get into the specifics. I actually did I actually did the first workout in Density 2 this morning, so we can talk about that.
Okay.
But it was actually harder than I was expecting, and I was like, oh my God, this is only 30 minutes. And I was like, there was a few of the moves where I was getting fatigued.
Yeah.
But it was a really good workout.
Thanks. Yeah, we can dig into that, whenever we want to a little later. Yeah, I mean, I love designing these programs. I love giving you and the members something to really key in on and be able to, feel success and feel achieved. And, especially with strength training, the one-offs will get you so far, but when you set out and you have these little short to medium term blocks of goal set work, that's where the real power comes from.
Yep, I agree. I think that's really helpful from like a motivation standpoint to do these programs or collections or whatever you want to call them. All right, cool. So I want to talk a lot about strength training. I want to talk especially about strength training after age 40, because that's a topic that's like near and dear to my heart. But before that, I'm hoping to just spend a little time talking a little bit about your background for people who maybe don't know you. And I'd be personally just interested in hearing about your journey. So one of the things that's I've seen that you've done recently is you've been sharing more of your personal journey on Instagram. So you're using this hashtag called Spiras, which I really like, talking about the different kind of eras in your life. And it's been really cool. I'm interested in like the feedback that you're getting, because it's like, I would say pretty like vulnerable in some ways and very honest, and talking about some of the challenges that you've had, throughout your life. And I think that is really cool, because I think a lot of people, it resonates with people. They're like, okay, this guy's not just this like perfect fitness dude that's on my TV. Like he's actually got a real story and has had challenges. So tell me just like briefly about like what your motivation was around that and how that Spiras kind of came to be.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in one sentence, I think for me, the start of it was an exercise in vulnerability, and, not necessarily with any intent of where it was going to go, how the reactions were going to be. But, my whole life, as I kind of explained a little bit throughout, I've been relatively kind of guarded emotionally, especially in public, and just haven't shared about my trials, my struggles, my life in general outside of kind of the fitness world that I would currently be living in. And the one thing is, the first thing was that like I'm not going to be able to as a person, as a professional, kind of move forward and do the things that I want to do and feel open enough to kind of really, they use, the word authentic self is, it's thrown around a lot, but I think it is meaningful and powerful. So, for obviously we don't need to share every single thing about our life, but if we're able to speak about our life story with some candor, then that just opens the doors and opens the heart to be able to connect. And I feel a little lighter, a little freer kind of as we're going through the process of this. So that at the onset of it, I was, talking to my agent, and she's like, we gotta just get your story out there somehow, knowing kind of how I am. I've always been a little bit guarded with my personal life, especially on social media. So she came up with the name Spiras, kind of playing on the
I like it.
It's
catchy
there. Yeah. And once the writing, and I think a lot of people who have done this, biographical or autobiographical writing, they find it pretty cathartic, in a sense also. So yeah, it was really cool kind of going back through the old pictures, getting back into that mindset. And as I started writing, the one thing I always like to do is to add, hopefully bring some sort of value to things that I'm putting out there. And right now, a lot of that's focused on my Peloton classes. But there's only a pretty narrow window of stuff we can actually get out in a class, because you're coaching the class and there's everything else going on. So
I appreciate all your like little like side jokes, even if sometimes they're like kind of corny or whatever. You're like, you know what I like the best is like when you start to go down some path with some analogy, and then you're like, nah, actually that doesn't make sense. And then you're like backtrack of like, I love that.
Most of them are kind of corny, and sometimes the inner monologue floats away a little bit. But that's and I appreciate the those who appreciate that type of humor.
Yes.
And as a quick aside, like when I'm in teaching those classes, like I want you to feel like we're just lifting in the gym together. That's how I kind of grew up, like, working out on sports teams, or even as a personal trainer, like I'm right next to you, and so we're doing stuff that gets uncomfortable that we got to push through. But there's never a time where, a little levity, a little laughter can definitely kind of break the ice and go a long way and get to that end goal. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, totally. Cool. So kind of an exercise in vulnerability, and you kind of go through different periods of your life. And let me just ask you to tell me a little bit about I don't think we necessarily need to like recap the whole thing. So I would actually encourage people to go to Instagram and read through it, because I think it's really well done. But tell me just a little bit about like, where'd you grow up, by the way? I don't know.
So I grew up in Connecticut, a town called Madison.
Where in Connecticut?
It's right on the shoreline, right on 95, about 20 minutes east of New Haven.
Okay, cool. Because I grew up in Cheshire, Connecticut, which is like between Hartford and New Haven.
Yeah. Cheshire's a little more to the west over there. But kind of your classic like New England middle class shoreline town. And it was a great place to grow up. I grew up like with woods and a river behind me, so I was always out in the woods as a kid, fishing, mountain biking, and got into gymnastics at a pretty early age. It was like 6 or 8. I got into gymnastics.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And that became a huge part of my life for, that kind of 8 years until I was about 16. And really, gave me at that time, like it was both kind of an identity and a confidence in this area that was outside of my normal, like my school life, my town life. The gym was the next town over, and there's not that many, there was no high school guys gymnastics. There was only the girls team. So any guys who wanted to do gymnastics would have to go to one of the, I'd say handful of gymnastics gyms in the state. And there would be kids from, all these random surrounding towns coming in. So it was this kind of, oasis for me, where something that I was pretty good at, that I enjoyed, that everybody there was, it was almost like the, like a little bit of like the Sandlot, like all these kind of like, random kids from all these, towns all over were here to do this, sport that nobody really makes sense about, outside of school. So, it kind of served both ends of that spectrum of like, gave me this place to go where I felt more safe and secure, where I felt a little bit of confidence in myself, because I was pretty good, for my age, my level at that time. I was winning state championships and won the New England championships once.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And then, and on the flip side of that too, it was like, okay, I'm doing this like, quote, like weird sport that, most of the kids in my high school, like I was the only guy in my high school doing gymnastics. So it was this kind of offset of like, I'm a little bit of this kind of goofy kid with big ears in high school that, didn't really have, wasn't the ladies' man, didn't really have that much confidence in my social skills necessarily. But when I went to the gymnastics gym, that was like a place of solace for me. So it was, kind of two ends of that spectrum, but it really, I think, gave me purpose at that time in my life. And it was something that I really, took to heart and worked really hard at, until I ended up leaving gymnastics to run track.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I'm sure it was like it must have got you in incredible shape too, right? I mean, you have to be very strong to do and very fit to do a lot of these activities, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and just learning about your body. It was probably like a great entree into like learning all the stuff that you teach now.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That was, one of my biggest takeaways was, it set me up for, I'd say, a lot of my successes in fitness later on, both knowing my own body, both having some of these capabilities that I learned from gymnastics. And then, when you practice gymnastics for a long time, yes, there's going to be, especially if you end up doing it at a very high level, there's injuries and there's the wear and tear that come along with it. But it also like bulletproofs your body in a way. I remember for 10 years after I stopped doing gymnastics, some random things here and there, but like my connective tissue, it was bulletproof. Like I was going
to say your core must be like insanely strong from doing some of these things. Like, I don't know, exactly
everything, the body control, and it gives you this, like, I remember about 10 years after I stopped and like getting to close to 30, all these things started kind of popping on my body. And I was like, what is this? And I was like, oh man. I think I was listening to some podcasts of some former gymnasts talking about this kind of like bulletproofing effect it has on the system that lasts 5, 8, 10 years, depending upon, but if you don't keep it up, obviously you're going to lose it over time. So, we can talk about how I'm kind of get back into that, bulletproofing after 40 these days. But yeah, it gave me a really great working knowledge of my body, and then a perspective of coaching between that and my track and field days, of positioning, movement that I was really able to kind of use in my personal training first, and now in my classes, that I think is a unique look on cueing and coaching and movement that I try to bring into my classes.
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. So let's fast forward a little bit. So you end up going to college at Miami, yes, right? And so tell me a little bit about that. And I also want to just kind of double click in on the comment you made about how you were sort of not a super confident kid and with big ears, I think you said. And so that going through the what you wrote on Spiros, it seemed like that there was some, that impacted your confidence quite a bit and was impacting your identity, that you kind of saw yourself as this kid with big ears or whatever. So tell me a little bit about that. Cause it seems like that's like one thing I've found with some of the most impressive people that I've interviewed, and I'm sure it's not a mistake, is that they've often there was something in their past that was like this weakness or something that was just killed them, it's like, but it ultimately comes around to make them that much stronger in the end. And there's lessons around, throughout history, great presidents like Teddy Roosevelt being this really weak, sickly kid and ends up being the strongest, most, powerful dude you can imagine. But so I don't know, there's a question in there somewhere, but tell me just about kind of dealing with that. And then maybe the college experience, I think would be cool to hear about.
Yeah, sure. No, it's a great segue into that I mean, growing up, my ears, they basically stuck out 90 degrees from my head. The big classic Dumbo ears. And it was, it became my internal identity of I'm this kid with big ears, that because I look this way, people may not like me as much, or I'm weird, or I won't fit in, or I have to work extra hard to fit in, or I have to be a people pleaser and just try to get along with everybody. And I can't, necessarily, I held in that emotion, that turmoil so much, as a kid, that that started to kind of develop this default pattern of just dealing with my emotions internally. And, you know, when you don't get those things out and talk about them with people, they swirl and they fester. And, you know, so that was kind of my, and I say that like, you know, I don't want people to think that I was like, you know, cowered in the corner of my room every day, like afraid to go outside.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, these kind of two things can be true at once, where you're living your life in high school or in college. And, you know, in college, I made some really, really good friends, you know, through fraternity and track, and I was having a blast. I was having so much fun, but I was still, you know, I guess when I say I got into college, I started growing my hair out. Just because in 1998 in the summer in Connecticut, everybody was doing the, you know, the shaggy look. And
I saw some of the pictures on Instagram, the long blonde locks.
Yeah. And then, you know, halfway through, I realized, oh, it's kind of covering my ears a little bit. And so I just kind of let that go. And when I got to Miami, I had this half blonde mop on my head. And I just was like, I'm just going to let this go. Because I noticed that for me, I could look in the mirror and be like, here's a kid with a kind of goofy mop of hair. But people don't, at least in my mind, it was like, people aren't going to notice my ears as much.
Right.
You know, so it really, you know, it was really it was my identity. It was one of my identities that kept me from, I think, being, you know, standing up for myself in certain you know, areas, really speaking, saying what I wanted. And when I got to Miami, so I went to Miami. The pole vault coach, Bill Falk, he used to run pole vault camps for high school kids. He was an assistant coach in Miami. So I kind of got familiar with the school through him, and then got to school.
Was that your event, pole vault?
Yeah, I was a pole vaulter.
Oh man, dude, that's crazy. I was just watching that in the Olympics.
I mean, those guys are, you know, they are sailing. They're sailing. I wasn't as elite a jumper as they are by any means. But coming from gymnastics, my high school track coach, like, you should try the pole vault. So I gave it. I was horrible the first year. I could barely get over the bar, and then something clicked, and I was able to walk on the track team at Miami and jump there.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But to just kind of continue this and put a little bit of a bow on it, you know, when I got to school, I was, you know, 145 pounds, 140, lean, but like wiry, small kid. And I never really lifted weights before. All the training I did was for gymnastics, body weight. For track, we didn't really lift.
Wired, dude. That is pretty light. 145. Wow, how tall?
Yeah, I mean, I was probably almost 6 feet at that point.
Okay.
5'11" ish. So yeah, I was a little wiry kid, you know.
I was the same way. I was like tall and skinny and lanky, but I've still not quite managed to put on all the muscle that you have. But let's talk about that later.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I just like, you know, I was definitely like a late bloomer. Like I kind of hit my growth spurt at the same time I started lifting weights with this, you know, D1 weight room coach. And so I put on like 45 pounds of muscle in the first 2 years. Just from eating, you know, 3 meals a day. I was probably eating 6,000 or 8,000 calories a day, just lifting it for track practice, lifting in the school gym with my friends, out at track every day, running and sprinting. And so, you know, and that was another one. It was awesome because I was like, wow, I have muscles now. And I'm finding now the relationship between training in the weight room and performance in sports, which I'd never seen that relationship. I just did the sport, right? We did conditioning and gymnastics, but it's all body weight stuff kind of. And then, you know, at the same time, and being down in Miami too, it's obviously, you know, shirts are off, suns are out. It's a place where like aesthetic a long way. So that reinforced, and I started getting more attention as I started getting, you know, this physique built up and some more muscles. And I had this long, shaggy blonde mop of hair that was kind of my thing. You know, people like everybody recognized me. So again, it was kind of doubling down on, oh, if you look a certain way, people are going to like you. And so I was hiding the ears, right? So I kind of like, you know, they were still there. I would still literally, every time I walked by a mirror, like a reflection in a window on a car or a door, and there was a mirror, I would just like I would fluff my hair out just to make sure it was like covering my ears. Like it was almost like a default thing.
You were really
just
self-conscious
to like
about
hide that part of me from everybody seeing it. And then, and then I got, all this muscle on. And so it was like, okay, now my physical appearance is really, I'm basing why people like me on my physical appearance. And it wasn't coming from a place of like vanity as much as it was coming from a place of insecurity, because I didn't really know. I mean, you're 18, 20 years old, you're still developing yourself internally, as a person. So, and I had a, whole decade to try to figure that one out after, and we're still working on it. But yeah, so, when I got to school, I was very fortunate that I found an awesome group of guys in my fraternity. I was running track. So I had a good support system around me of people that, liked, I truly believe they liked me for me, and it wasn't, they didn't care about my years. Nobody cared about my years except for me. So that was just this thing I held inside and carried around with me for the first 22 or 3 years of my life. And yeah, I had a great time in college. At the same time, again, two things can be true. Like there's that piece of you that's really insecure about a really certain point, and you have that internal dialogue and identity. And then you can kind of let that, drift to the back, or like not focus on it and just live life and like be a fun college kid and have a great time and run track and do fraternity. And so, I finished school, and so I got picked up for modeling, literally like at a mall in Coconut Grove or something.
So they saw the mop,
they saw the muscles, and the body, and I started a good looking guy. And then, so that was my next like mind twist was, okay, I'm going to be a model. Who would have ever thought? Right. But my first agent was like, we'll get you some work with the hair and then you can get your ears fixed. And so then I was like, all right, I got to get my ears fixed. This is going to be, I
was going to say, that's not known as being like that can be a pretty brutal industry, right? They don't mess around in terms of feedback they give you on your visual appearance.
I mean, whether, everybody's like subjective view of beauty is different, but yeah, it's an industry generally based on your appearance. There is a little more to it than that, which I kind of found out, as I moved forward. But so I at that point I was like, I asked my parents like, hey, I really want to get my ears fixed. I think this is gonna, in my mind, this was gonna solve everything, right? This was the golden ticket right here. So went back to Connecticut. It's a pretty simple procedure. Got the ears pinned back. I was up there for a couple months and then ended up going back down to Miami to try the modeling thing. And
so this was this after college that you had the surgery? College.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I was 22, I guess. So right after college, and I was still pretending like I was in college. I was living with my brother and another. They were in school. I was working at a restaurant, trying to do this modeling thing, still partying, like with no.
Usually, there's a couple of years there where you're like kind of in the real world, but not ready to let go of the college.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just waiting for the big break, right? I'm waiting to be the next Ashton Kutcher, or waiting to be, the next big thing. And I thought that was like in my mind at the time. That's like I just gotta like, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna be a model, and I'm gonna be on TV, and then all these things. But I was still so lost as a person. And I didn't know anything else other than just kind of like hanging out with my friends. And so that was a, time where it got a little bit dark, and, I was just really struggling to find direction, to find any sort of purpose. I couldn't even say those words. At the time it was like, I didn't even know I was searching for direction. Like that's how lost I kind of was. I was just waiting for something to happen to me.
So you had the surgery, and your appearance changed. So you were not self-conscious about that anymore, but it wasn't the like cure-all that you were necessarily looking for.
No. I mean, it started to, open up some external doors, but and I say this, and I wrote this in the Spirits too. Like I'm all for somebody trying to change their physical appearance if it's very meaningful to them, if you're trying to lose weight, if you want to fix your nose, if there's things that are bothering you about yourself and you have access to that and you think it was gonna really help, go for it. And I should say, there's a lot of internal work to do. So I'm still walking around at 24, this big, beautiful, muscly guy with his ears flattened out and short hair. But I'm inside, I'm still this like insecure 12-year-old boy trying to navigate life from those eyes. And so it's taken a while, and I'm still working on it, but honoring and acknowledging that person where I came from and that time in my life, and working to not let those default reactions still be my default reactions and personalities in life today. And so that was the thing. I hadn't done any of the work. I thought this magic ticket was going to change my appearance, and then that was it. I was going to be good. But as we find out, through my 20s and then even into my 30s, like there's a lot of internal work that needed to be done to start feeling confident in myself as a person, as a human, as a soul, not as an external shell.
Yeah. So not getting all of your validation, I guess, and identity from appearance alone. Now, what has that internal work looked like for you? Like, what is that tactically? Is that therapy, or is that something else?
Yeah. I mean, it took a while through my 20s. I started with some therapy then, and was kind of on and off with the therapy. I went to live in Milan for about 1.5 years, again, kind of chasing that fashion modeling dream out there. And one step at a time. The first thing I did was like, all right, I'm gonna get out of this party world that I was in, and at least have like a clear head going through life, and not escaping to the late nights and the parties and all of those things that just don't allow you access to who you are and to what's actually happening inside. It's just, you're very clouded all the time. So that was a big first step. And then I have to say, it wasn't till about my early 30s when I was in this relationship, and I was like, I knew it needed to end. And one of my friends and coworkers at the time introduced me to my first therapist that I saw in New York City, and she really helped kind of put some, just starting to put some light on, why I was feeling the way I was feeling. So, one thing was that, like, okay, we have, I undiagnosed ADD and this thing called dysthymia, which is this kind of low grade chronic depression that can kind of come and go, and over the years it surfaces or not. But a lot of my behaviors and these way I thought that I was so resistant to, or not even as resistant to, but I would kind of be very hypercritical and self-critical and beat myself up over why am I not organized like this? Why can't I do that? Why do I think this way? And it's like, just unpacking that with somebody and saying, like, this is how your brain is wired. So you can be compassionate to yourself about how you are wired. And then we find strategies to work within that, which, anybody who's ever struggled with ADD, depression, anxiety, any of these things, it's, a lot of it is coming back to self-compassion for who I am. And then what are the tools we can use and strategies we can use to, optimize your life and your behaviors, within everything that you're working with here. So yeah, since I was about 30, I guess it was 3 or 4, in the last 10 years, I've been seeing a therapist regularly, the same woman for a while. And then I found another guy, just kind of it was a natural shift. But yeah, I mean, weekly or bi-weekly therapy, and really just a lot of it is one, figuring out these kind of therapists are great because they can put names and identities and labels on certain things, and that's not an escape or an out, but it's just like, okay, if we can name it, then it's not so scary, right? It's not unknown. Right. It's not like, oh, this we call this, and you're doing that because this chain of events.
Like, you're not the only one experiencing
it. You're not the only one experiencing it. And they're, and reading other people's stories too, which is one of the things with the Spiras, which I didn't expect, but I was really glad sharing this and having other people be able to resonate and go through these experiences together is really powerful. So, a lot of it for me has been, just not being more self-compassionate. That was huge, because when the second you start beating yourself up, and that can work for a little while for certain instances and certain people more than others, that kind of like tough love. But it was finding the balance between complacency and self-compassion for me, because I could real easily just kind of escape into that world of complacency and be like, I'm good here. I'm not gonna push the envelope too far in either direction. I'm just gonna kind of sit in this world that I know it doesn't feel awesome, but it's very comfortable for me because I'm used to this like kind of low grade depression or feeling a little bit scatterbrained, and I'm still just going to kind of like meander through, versus the being self-compassionate about it and saying like, okay, these are the things I don't like about how I'm acting or behaving. I'm not a bad person because of that. I don't need to beat myself up for that. But let's use this energy, in a different way. So for me, that's been a lot of it has just been working on treating myself better internally, which in turn opens the doors and access to all of the skills, and stepping into like, whether it's journaling in the morning or, making sure the routine you want to do with your fitness is holding true. All these little things that when you're really beating yourself up, they become so much more of a burden, especially if you miss a day or it doesn't happen exactly how you want. And so, that's why I tell everybody, if you're starting out something new, fitness, journaling, whatever it is, there's a level of commitment and consistency you need to have, but there is a level of self-compassion that needs to be throughout, so that you are not beating yourself up again and again if things don't go as planned. You're looking back and saying, okay, how can I adjust to be better or get my goal moving forward?
Yep. Makes a ton of sense. I feel that too with especially like once you reach middle age, you kind of like, I can have like best laid plans sometimes and have this insane week planned for myself, and then I'll get to like Friday and I'll be like, my body is cooked, and I need like to do like just focus on like stretching or something that day. And it's like, okay, that's one less lift than I was planning on, but like, I also need to like listen to my body. Well, listen, I appreciate you. I appreciate the whole Spiras effort here. I think it's been awesome. I think, sharing that vulnerability is huge. I've seen it like so many times where people like share their stories and put it out there, and they're like, oh, you feel a little insecure putting it out there or whatever. But then, it comes back to you like tenfold, and everybody is like, yep, it resonates with people and they really get it. And I think everything that you're describing in terms of some of the struggles that you've had, I mean, I think almost everybody out there has experienced something similar. I mean, everybody's got their own unique things that they're dealing with, but whether it's depression, anxiety, ADHD, you name it, like, I mean, it's funny, like as a parent now as well, and like having a whole group of friends, everybody's got kids. It's like everybody, literally everybody, parents and kids, has something. Like there is something that everybody is dealing with in some way, shape, or form. Right. So I think the more kind of transparent people, especially like you are, who are in kind of more public facing positions I think that is just really super beneficial for everybody. So I appreciate you sharing all that. And I think, like, honestly, if I were, your agent advising you, I would say like do more of that. Like I think it would be cool to like lean in even more on the mental health stuff and like dive in like on the tactics that work for you. Like to me, it's interesting to hear you talk about journaling. Honestly, I think like, you know, your fitness is kind of built into your day job, but like moving your body to me, like, and this is something I tell my kids too. It's like, hey, like this is not only for your physical body, like this is for your mind too. Like if you're in a bad mood, like, you know, exert yourself, like go for a run or something like that, you know? So anyways, appreciate you sharing all that.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And yeah, we still got the 30s to come. I don't know, they may be out by the time this comes out. But yeah, you know, and that's the plan too, is I wanted to just get my story out and then, you know, so we have kind of a framework for it, and then hopefully share some tools with others along the way about what's worked for me and what can maybe work for them.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit so we can get to some of the strength stuff, but basically, and everybody go read what Andy's written on Instagram, but basically you end up transition. You end up finding fitness modeling. So you end up doing like all these, stuff like in Men's Health magazine and such, where like you're the guy like showing how to do the exercises, and that ended up being a really cool transition for you. Then you find your way to Equinox Gym, and you get a job as a trainer there, and you have a lot of success there, and really build up your client base and do really well there. And then is the next step Peloton? And I'm interested in kind of how
the next one's coming out. It should be out in a couple of days from today when we're recording this. But the next, I mean, I opened one gym in the city. I left Equinox, opened a gym called Soho Strength Lab with two of my good friends we were all trainers at Equinox together, and that was a very cool experience as a 30-year-old.
I was a member at Equinox when I lived in the city, by the way. I don't know if it would have overlapped, but I was there from like 01 to 07 or 08.
Okay. I moved to the city in 07. So we just missed each other.
I was in the Upper West Side by that time. So there was like an Equinox up there.
I was down in Soho at the Soho Equinox on Prince Street. And then, we opened a gym on our own. Basically, we were like, we wanted a space where we could actually do what we wanted to do training wise. So we built out this space with, it was definitely a little kind of basement style ragtag. Like we did a lot of the work other than some of the major demo, like we did all of it ourselves. I just remember being there till 11 at night, with a hammer drill, putting pull-up bars in the wall, and and it was, it was a big labor of love, and it was a lot of work. It was an amazing experience. And anybody who's ever opened a brick and mortar business of any kind knows like the hours that you need to put in there, especially the first year. So we were doing that training. I was still doing the fitness modeling stuff. And I ended up getting an opportunity to open another gym about 3 years later. So I left Soho Strength Lab, started to work on this other gym, and it was, I designed the whole gym floor. It's still in operation under a different name, but amazing space. And it was about that time where things weren't going so well in that new operation, just as far as like the personnel was a little bit of a rough space. And my personal life at the time was really, up in the air. There was a lot of stress going on in my personal life. And Rebecca Kennedy had actually about 6 months prior came to me and offered me a chance to audition for Peloton. I didn't know anything about Peloton. It was just a bike at that point. I didn't even know anything about the bikes, but they were opening the Tread and the Strength Studio. So I said, I was like, thank you for the offer. I'm just starting this work on this new project, and I think I'm going to put all my, my eggs in that basket for right now. I said about 6 months later, Robin Arzon actually called me back, and she was like, Andy, we'd like you to come in and audition. And anybody.
Now, how did they know you? Like,
well, so
is it just such a small world?
Yeah, I mean, the fitness world in New York City, it's a pretty small world. Everybody who teaches at a boutique fitness or runs a gym or is a personal trainer, and a lot of us are on the fitness modeling board at Wilhelmina. So it's a pretty you don't know everybody, but you almost know all of everybody.
I see.
And Rebecca and I had known each other for several years before that. She was actually trained some of her clients at my gym. She asked me to come in and audition. I was like, I've got this other thing going on. 6 months later, the other thing wasn't going as well as I had planned. My personal life is there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And so I said, okay, I'll come in. And that January, went in, did the audition. It was funny because Rebecca was in charge of hiring the team at that point.
Really? Was she an instructor, or was she more?
She was an instructor, but they brought her on to basically build out the tread and strength team.
I got it. Oh, I see. Yeah.
So she was kind of the director of tread and strength.
What year was this?
2018.
18. Okay.
So I did my audition. They were like, cool, go on to the next step. Anyway, a few interviews later, got the job. And, the rest is kind of history as far as Peloton. We opened that Christopher Street studio, teaching tread and strength classes there. And, then we moved to the big studio, but it was really, it was kind of like one of these, really, we were in this basement space. It wasn't big and fancy and glitzy. Everybody's doing, this entrepreneurial kind of grind to get things done. So I really appreciated being back in that. We are creating something.
That's cool.
At the very first, the onset, we were the first people to do this for Peloton. So it was a really cool mindset to be in, all very scrappy at that point, just trying to figure things out, get them done, keep moving forward, all the mistakes, and then keep moving forward. So, but yeah, that's how I got into Peloton in 2018. And then, we've been there since then.
So what's been and of course, things progressed both with Peloton and Rebecca, who is now your, I guess, significant other, fiance. Is that right?
Fiance. Yeah.
Yeah. Fiance. Congratulations on that, by the way. That's amazing. So, all right, I do want to dive into the strength stuff, but tell me, just looking back since 18, if there's a couple pinch me moments or a couple crazy things that are I can't believe this is happening because you're at Peloton. Is there anything that jumps out of you this is so wild, I can't believe this is my life?
I mean, though, the whole ride has been wild. I think one of the craziest things was, during the pandemic when we couldn't work out of the studio.
Yeah.
And some of us were able to film workouts from home.
That
was a pretty surreal moment. Living in New York City. I was living on 6th Avenue at the time, and New York City at that point was surreal with, everybody walking around with the masks on, lines outside the grocery store. It was really crazy.
Right.
But they managed to ship us all this camera equipment. We set up, camera, 2 production monitors, all in the living room. And we were filming these workouts from home for about a month and a half, 2 months before they let the skeleton crew back into the studio. And that was a pretty surreal time of just everything that was going on in the world around us, obviously, being in New York City, but then also having the opportunity to still connect with people through fitness. And, at the end of the day, we teach fitness classes. I get you up, we're going to move through things together. We're going to lift some weights. Maybe I give you a couple of little nuggets that you'll take with you about life, maybe some training tips, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, we are moving together as a group, as a team, as a family, and being able to share those moments in that really highly stressful time in most people's lives was really special. And, we still hear about. I took my first class with you during pandemic, filming it from your apartment, like there's like you plants behind you. And
I remember that. It seems like a long time ago for some reason now, but I remember that. I remember like, let's say something. I can't remember if it's like Alex Toussaint or somebody. I remember somebody like having the bike like in their apartment and like doing
had bikes in their apartment. You know, I pulled out the strength mat to teach my strength classes. So yeah, you know, it was that was a pretty surreal time in general, and it was like felt really, you know, just grateful to be able to share some light and share some energy with everybody at that point.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing you guys were able to keep producing content throughout that time period. So that was cool. Is there anybody who you've met or you've met because of this role, like Tom Brady or somebody like that? Is anybody who like you?
I can't say any like big stuff. Honestly, I've just been really grateful to have met all of my teammates.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing group. Everybody just has like such a unique personality. Everybody's heart is really, really honest and in it. And, you know, I like some of my favorite times and still continuing are when we're, you know, we call it the green room. I call it the locker room, but like, you know, a room where we get ready in before we go on. And depending on who's there, it could be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of us just hanging out. And we really honestly like cherish and enjoy those moments. It's kind of this like, you know, this little safe zone for us. We all get each other, what we're going through. You can kind of, you know, we cry, we laugh, we, you know, amp each other up. It's like, it's everything that you'd want from your best friends and your family in these little moments. So I think just in general, like I've been very grateful to have met, you know, the instructor team. Obviously Rebecca and I knew her before, but you know, our relationship developed from working together, and Jess King and Dennis Morton, Adrian, some of my very best friends, who we were able to, through.
Adrian's a beast.
He's a beast, man.
That guy is so jacked. It's unbelievable. And I do workouts with him.
Like, with a heart of gold.
Yeah. I've been fortunate to interview Dennis and Matt Wilpers on this podcast.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't listen to theirs because I didn't want to be I wanted to come in fresh.
Okay, cool. Yeah. They're both awesome, as you can imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Just super like just great guys.
Great guys. You know, I'm training with Wilpers now out on the track these days, and he's a beast on the track too.
He's an animal, and he's like very like stats and analytics focused too. So that's what I do a lot of rides with him and like in the power zone, stuff like that. And he's both him and Dennis, they're both awesome. Cool. All right. So well, I'm sure it's going to be a big throwdown then at the Spear Kennedy wedding with all these Peloton instructors again. I've seen some of these who was it, Wilpers that got married in like Nicaragua or something. I've seen some pictures from some of these things. So that's it seems like an awesome crew. And I feel like Peloton's done a great job of like cultivating a really great group of instructors. So it's no surprise to me that it's like
there is. I mean, it's we all really appreciate and enjoy each other.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, we've been threatening to talk about strength training for most of this conversation. So let's do it. Let me just start high level. Tell me just a little bit about your overall philosophy. And I do want to bring it back to like people over 40 and like, tell me a little bit about like what you're doing right now. So like you've had total strength program out there. You've had density 1, density 2. I was just looking back at my workouts this morning. I did total strength like 5 times, like back in like 21 and 22.
Oh, like the first total strength, huh?
Yeah. And then density, I was like, I could have swore I did density, but I think I'm confusing myself because it was total strength was like a program and density maybe was a collection.
Density is in collections.
Yeah, I like that actually better because it gives you a little more freedom.
It's a little more freedom and you can.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So just tell me high level, like, especially like through the lens of somebody who's like in middle age, like your overall philosophy just on strength training. I mean, I've become like a huge advocate of just the importance of building muscle just for longevity, for the strains of daily life, et cetera. But it'd be interesting just to hear before we dive into like specific routines and stuff, just how you think about it, like more broadly.
Yeah, I mean, kind of we'll start in our 40s and maybe take a look backwards as we talk about it. But um, I mean, you hit it right on the head. The first thing is just maintaining some muscle mass. And as we get older, maybe in our 20s, in early 30s, that depending on who you are and what you're doing and experience, like the powerlifting and the Olympic lifting and the really heavy weights, like that can stack on some decent muscle. But there's also, especially if you've had some mileage on your system, backloading the barbells, there's also a decent amount of strain on the joints, on the connective tissue that one just needs to be aware of. So I'm a big fan of incorporating, I know, my Peloton classes are based on dumbbells, but whatever,
Yep.
equipment modality you like, incorporating some bodybuilding work. Like there's nothing, we kind of went through this like functional training thing where like, don't waste your time doing curls or tricep extensions or any of these single joint moves. We need to have a combination of both full body moves, some explosive work, some more high end strength work. And then a lot of it is just keeping the muscle mass on, doing, incorporating the bodybuilding moves, whether it's the dumbbell chest press or a lateral shoulder raise. If you have access to the machines, there's nothing wrong with doing some quad extensions. I'm not going to make them a huge part of my overall diet. And if you're a 20-year-old, stud athlete, you probably don't need to incorporate too much of that. But as we age and, maintaining muscle mass is I think one of the biggest focuses. And just to do it in a safe way that we, again, depending on where you're at and if you're training for specific events or performance-based stuff, that's different. But we don't need to necessarily be doing these 3 rep maxes or even 5 rep maxes on squats and deadlifts. Like you can get a lot of stimulus lifting a heavy 6 or a heavy 8 on something.
Yep.
Especially
that's what you had in the Density 2 workout that I did this morning was 6. It was like 6 reps. It was a lot of sets. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of sets. So that's a Density set up a little bit differently, but I did it in a way that it's kind of that magic, like combination of hypertrophy and strength. And this is, again, it's not a weight that you can only lift for 6 reps when you're fresh. Right. We set it up so it's maybe your 12 rep max ish of a weight. But by the time you get 5 minutes deep in a 10-minute rep block or AMRAP, and you're doing 6 reps of a push press and 6 reps of a deadlift or a chest press, whatever it is, like those last 5 minutes, you start to feel like it's getting tough to get this 6 reps up. Right. So maybe you have to take a little more break. So you're getting that same stimulus of the heavier loading due to the fatigue of the first half of that workout. So we're getting clean reps. We're getting, the idea of Density 2 is not to set you up where you need to go to failure, but I want to shake it out, take another 10, 15 seconds rest, then knock out this set of 6 clean. So I'm always getting clean reps. Not that they're easy, but we're going to make the reps up. And if you don't, no big deal. You can, get 5 or 6, no problem. But it's that accumulating stimulus in a very safe way over those 10 minutes and having some sort of gauge as to I can then, progress and either do step up in weight or do the same weight and add more reps the next week. So I know I'm progressing, but I'm not going to put you in a situation in that type of program where it's like throwing a bar in your back and saying do 5 heavy squats when you're under a high degree of fatigue. That's more of a recipe for disaster, especially if you don't have a coach or a team around you in person. So I'm trying to get the same stimulus that we can with some heavier lifts by kind of, pre-fatiguing a little the first half of that block. And then, okay, we're going to need to really kind of dig in and focus on these last, 3 or 4 or 5 sets. That felt easy 5 minutes ago, but we're getting a very similar strength and hypertrophy stimulus out of those that you would find in like a heavy set of 6. They're not the same neurological stimulus maybe, but as far as like the growth stimulus and the strength stimulus, it's going to be there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's I just did it a couple hours ago and it beat me up pretty good. In a good way, in a good way. Like I was struggling towards the end. Like
And that's how
yeah,
it should be.
definitely wanted to take a few more seconds in
Yep.
between.
Yep.
But that's good. I like that a lot because so for me, like so I'm 46, right? And I'm like trying to accomplish a couple things. Like, and I think I might have sent you some stats over an email. I don't know if you saw those or not, but basically I'm trying to improve my body composition.
Yeah, I did. Well, it's been very impressive what you've done so far, I have to say.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I feel like I still have a long way to go.
I mean, listen, we're all on the journey, but you know, to drop body fat, to build lean muscle, in that ratio, it's impressive, and it just shows, you know, definitely some hard work and commitment to get there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But like one of my goals definitely is, especially at this age where it's harder to rebound from injury. Like I really want to be careful about not getting injured. And so like I'm working out at home. I'm fortunate that I have a nice home gym setup where I've got a bench and I've got dumbbells and I've got basically what I need, right? And I've got enough space to do what I need to do. But to your earlier point, like the things that freak me out a little bit are like I want to strike that balance between I want to be doing heavy enough weights where I can legitimately see like measurable growth in muscle, right? And so far I've been focused on not really gaining weight. Like I actually wanted first half of this year, I was focused on maintaining my same weight, which is improving body composition. But now I'm kind of like, I mean, I could put on 10 pounds of muscle. Like that would be cool. But probably more important is like the not get injured thing. Mm-hmm. And so like, there's a couple of things like that I like for some reason, like deadlifts in particular, like and maybe this is because I never had really proper like in-person training and I don't have a coach sitting there with me in person, but like I'm a little bit freaked out about like hurting myself in deadlifts or something like that. So how do you think about just that kind of balance between heavy weights and injury prevention, I guess?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. The topic, which, you know, I'm constantly working on myself. I've just turned 44 this summer. So we're in that mid 40s boat together here. And one of the things I'll say is that setting yourself up for success outside of the workout is key. And what that means to me is warm-ups, and I call them drills, but meaning get the body primed appropriately. We're going to like that goes a long way in preventing injury when we're trying to push some intensity during a workout. And in addition, and we can go to the details of that warm up in a second, in addition to the warm up, everybody's going to have something that's kind of bugging them a little bit, especially as we age, you know, a little bit of road wear and tear, my left shoulder, you know, my lower back, things I gotta keep an eye on. And so I've been really fortunate. I have a great physical therapist that I work with who, if things flare up or if I'm like, this thing's feeling cranky or this side's feeling a lot weaker than that side, we'll go through some drills, I call them. And for me, it's like doing some more isometric work on the, you know, posterior side of my left shoulder, or doing some really focused breathing drills with rib positioning and tailbone, gentle tailbone movement, just as an example of little things that I'm working on. If your lower legs, if your ankles, calves, Achilles are an issue, you know, isometric work on the lower legs, calf raises, tibia lifts. So paying attention to what's going on with your body. If your back's getting a little fired up when you're deadlifting, you're like, I think I got good form, but I'm not really sure why. I know everybody doesn't have the option to necessarily see a physical therapist on like a weekly basis, but it is and you know, you can get a lot of information online, but there is a huge value in finding, even if it's a 1 or 2 off situation, really good physical therapist or a movement coach that can look at you and say, you know what, It's because your bottom two vertebrae are not flexing and extending the way your top two are. So it's putting a little bit of extra pressure down there. Let's give you these 2 drills, work those into your warm up, do them every day. It takes 3 minutes. And
that would be interesting. I'd almost be interested in going and seeing somebody doing like a full body, like mobility or like movement, like diagnosis, just to see what they would pick out.
Yeah. I mean, you
like, doesn't, something
totally,
like that.
if you have access to that, somebody can kind of run through the whole chain. If you're having specific issues, usually things are linked up and down the chain. That's what, it's like your knee hurts, like, let's check out the hip and the ankle, and see what's causing that. So whatever you have to do, and it's going to be a little different for everybody, these little drills, and whether it's standing on one foot to get some more ankle stability for 2 minutes every day, or putting a little extra core work in a very specific manner, those things are the gold. That is the fountain of youth that is really going to fill your glass enough to allow you to continue working at some sort of intensity. And then being mindful of, do I need to do barbell bench press, barbell deadlift, and barbell back squat anymore?
Right.
I feel pretty strong. There's something I love a barbell power clean, but I don't necessarily need to. I can load up my system pretty good with dumbbells, kettlebells, weight vests, doing unilateral work, doing some tempo work with squatting with dumbbells. If you've taken my classes, I love the eccentrics and the pauses. That's a great way to throw a big stimulus on the muscular system without overdoing like the axial loading on your spine, or, really like pushing that risk of injury into the red zone where you don't want it to be. So, and then keeping an eye on the mobility and the stretching on the tail end of that too. As we get older, as they say, 25, you can hit it hard in the gym 5 days a week, go out, get drunk, shake it off, and do it again. 45, I'm gonna be very strategic with the high input days I have, and I maybe have 2 of those. Okay, where I'm like, okay, this is where I'm gonna push it hard on the sprints or harder on the weights. The rest of the days, I'm gonna get the reps in. It's not a lazy workout, but it's just like, I don't need to crush myself today, or maybe I crush these last 2 sets of curls and pull-ups just to get the pump on. Everything else is pretty manageable. And then the active recovery days, I think, are really important, meaning some days you need rest. Like when you get to the end of the week and you're like, I'm supposed to work out today, but body is just smoked. Don't push it, right? But if you want, especially if it's a headspace thing about like, I want to stick to my routine, get 5-10 minutes of like some light cardio in on the bike, on a run, easy, and then do 5 or 15 minutes of some mobility work where you're just doing joint circles, maybe a little bit of core work, taking the joints through range of motion, letting that synovial fluid kind of get in there, pulling some nutrients in there. The body really reacts well and heals when you increase blood flow, when there's a gentle increase in heart rate, when I'm searching for some range of motion through this joint that yesterday I just trust with the chest press, and I'm feeling very like internally rotated right now. So let's open up. Let's, being active, and I call it active recovery. If you want to rest, take a rest. All right. But if we can add 20 minutes of active recovery in, slightly elevated, or you don't even need to do a cardio, but doing your hip circles, your joint circles, a little bit of core work, some stretching. Again, just like, and I was going to say, I love the name of your podcast, Intentional Wisdom, because you need to be intentional about it. All right. If you want a day of rest, be intentional about it. Like my body is shot. This is the day I'm going to just let my nervous system recover, spend it with my kids. I'll get a little action, run around with them in the yard, pool. Maybe we go see a movie, whatever. But if you want an active recovery day, again, be intentional about it. Set yourself up. I don't need to spend my whole day doing this, but I'm going to take 20 minutes. And this 20 minutes of joint circles, core work, and stretching is going to set me up for success for the rest of the week.
Yep. Love that. That's great advice. All right. So let me just ask you, I just want to get your opinion on this specific routine that I sent you. And I'm going to I'll put this in the show notes for listeners if they want to check this out, but I sent you something that basically I'll run you through what it is. This is what I've been doing mostly like this year. So let me just run you through like a typical week. Sunday, I do 60-minute total strength. This is like my big workout day with you. So you've got a ton of these. I think you have like, I just looked this morning, you have like 95 of these or something like that on the Peloton platform. It's wild. Yeah. So there's no shortage of content, which I love. I'll do that. That basically hits upper body, lower body. It gets all your major muscles in, which is a great way to start the week, I think. Monday, I'll do a 20-minute HIIT ride. Every day, by the way, I'm walking 8,000 steps. I have this goal this year to make sure I do that every day this year. Tuesday, I'm doing a zone 2 ride or a run or a ruck. So I'm not lifting Monday or Tuesday. Then I'm back to the lifting where I do a 30-minute upper body strength. Thursday is again, ride, run, or ruck, usually about 45 minutes. Friday, I'm back with lower body strength. Saturday, I am run, ride, or ruck. Or if I'm totally cooked, this is maybe more like a rest, stretch, mobility day. And then it's back to total strength on Sunday. So how does that strike you overall if my goals are improving body composition, so continuing to kind of gain strength? I guess what is your overall reaction seeing that?
Overall reaction, I think the week is laid out wonderfully. You got a big strength day, a shorter high intensity day, cardio wise, a longer cardio day to kind of flush everything out. Then we get back into that strength and we're alternating strength and the longer cardio. I think the layout of the week is fantastic. If you wanted to focus a little bit more on putting on a little bit more muscle, getting a little more strength in, then on those days you're lifting upper body and lower body, that's just about adding a little bit more volume or a little bit more intensity. So, if it's like, rather than if you get that 30-minute upper body class out of the way, if you got anything left, maybe take, a 10-minute extra biceps, a 10-minute extra chest. That's one of the things and I was speaking with a friend about this the other day of like, in my mid 40s too, I want to keep up all the kind of, bigger picture functional work with the strength training, which we can do. And you're going to find too, if you add these little bits of really focused, like the bodybuilder pump, and it doesn't have to be a ton of time or even every day, but say you did it 3 days a week. Maybe you do it after the HIIT run is a great time because it's a little more high intensity. It's a shorter work. So after the HIIT run, you can pop out 10 minutes of upper body, but focused on one muscle or muscle group. Same thing after your 30-minute strength, find another one in upper, I'd still stick with the upper body, just keep that compounding fatigue going. After the lower body lift, same deal, like something that's just like, it's not super heavy, but you're doing basically 10 minutes of like goblet squats or lunges or, throw some hip bridges in there, something that's, you're just going to get the pump on. That can go a long way over time and not even that much time into like being like, oh, I'm feeling this pump. I can see this kind of coming in. So if your goal with that program is to maybe add a little bit more strength focus or a little bit more muscle focus, I'm always looking for the low hanging fruit, simplest approach. Add 10 minutes of focused muscle group strength onto the end of your HIIT run and then your 2 shorter strength days. See where it goes, if you wanted to do something like put that density program in on, say, your 2 strength days, 30 minutes. That's
what I was thinking.
You could totally,
you're hitting upper body and lower body.
Those are upper and lower.
Yeah.
The day 3, the middle day is more upper body and abs. Days 1 and the first and last day of the week are more kind of full body. But again, you don't necessarily have to do 3 of those in the week either. You could do 2 in a week and kind of leapfrog, or the way it's set up in collections, you could literally pick out 2 workouts out of the.
I like that. That's what I was saying. That's why I like the freedom of collections. It's right, not like,
just those and take out the arms and abs day if you already feel like you're getting, enough of that, or put that one in and only do one, it's a little less intense as far as nervous system when you're doing upper body and core versus
Yep.
when you're doing, you know, the lunges, the push presses, the presses and all that. So, and again, that's something that you can track. Again, with strength, it's like the TS60, we're kind of progressing throughout the week. I love doing something. And if you're taking whatever workout you're taking, whether it's a density or just a random upper body class, I would say take that same workout for 4 weeks in a row.
Okay.
And just know, you know, write down your weights. Okay.
Yep.
You know, if you don't want to track specific reps, if it's time-based stuff, don't worry about it, but just be like, I'm going to use the same weights for these first 2 weeks. Next 2 weeks, I'm going to pick up next weight up. Whatever happens, happens. But I know I'm putting more stimulus on my system there. So that's what I would say as far as the strength days. If you're doing a program, follow that. If you're just, you have an upper body workout that you love, do it 4 weeks in a row and then find another one and do that 4 weeks in a row. But
I love that. That's like great advice.
All over I think it's a solid program. I love that you're getting outside, doing the rucking. You know what I mean? That's like a great way to you know, get your,
get a lot of weird looks hiking around my neighborhood in that 30-pound pack on my back.
I think it's getting commonplace enough that, you know, people are you got to know what's going on.
Nobody's calling the cops on me.
No.
Out there at like 6 a.m. or whatever. Okay, cool. I love that. So yeah, I think that's a great call. Like, especially some of those shorter days, I could add in like a 10-minute biceps, or doing the same class like 4 weeks in a row, or the same 3 classes or something like that. I think that's a really good idea. I haven't really considered that before, because I do like enjoy the variety of different classes, and different music, and, you know, it's just cool to. That's one of the things I loved about Peloton platform, is just there's so much variety. You never feel like you're doing the same thing. But I think I could handle that for like 4 weeks in a row for the purpose of tracking the weights.
Yeah,
that is one of the kind of downsides that I've struggled with so far. Is it's like, you know, if you just grab a typical like 30-minute upper body strength, the instructor is obviously not going to be able to dial you in to like, okay, you need 35-pound or 40-pound weights here. They're like, okay, you need a heavy and a medium. And it's kind of, and I don't think I've done a great enough job tracking that consistently in terms of what that is. And I've been doing tons of different workouts. So I like those tips, because in terms of like progressive overload, continuing to lift either more reps or heavier weights, I think that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very passionate about, and that's why I'm doing all these programs on Pel. I'm very passionate about getting people in the mindset that repetition is your friend.
Yeah.
In strength training, especially, and everything in life, but especially in strength training, repetition with and just knowing when you can add a little bit more intensity to a point. If you do the same routine for 3 years, you know, you're not continuing results there, but you can focus on something for 4 to 6 weeks and then make a little switch, focus on something else. That's enough time to find some real progressive overload stimulus.
Cool. Now you introduced the bench in Density 2, which is a cool addition. Anything else like that on the near term horizon that's coming up?
Well, we are launching a new app that's going to be a gym workout app coming up.
Oh, wow.
So
that's cool.
It's not officially out yet. You're kind of first, but I got permission that I could mention it.
Wow.
Here,
okay.
So
breaking news.
The
nice.
Team, and myself have been working really hard behind the scenes. So it's going to be a follow along in the gym. I mean, if you have a home gym, you can use it there, but we're going to be including bench, dumbbells, barbell work, gym machines. So, you know, again,
that's exciting.
Program format. All the moves are up there with videos, with training tips, you know, exactly what you have to do when you step in the gym. It's going to take you through what, you know, there's going to be a bunch of programs you can, you know, decide to follow, but awesome. I'm super pumped about this. Been a gym rat my whole life, you know, and I love teaching classes. I love giving people the opportunity to work out in the convenience of their home. But at the same time, I love the gym. I was a personal trainer for 15 years. So I love seeing somebody come into this space that may or may not be familiar to them, that may be a little bit, scary. Like, what is all this stuff? Who are all these, people running around sweating, grunting, dropping
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
and really like bringing some joy and some comfort into the environment, bringing some direction into their training life. And I love being a personal trainer for 15 years. And so I'm taking the same approach. I take this similar approach in my classes, as you know, just kind of, I want to be your guide, but we're lifting together through this thing. And so I'm pumped for this gym, this gym experience.
I'm always impressed that you're able to like lift the weights and do the instruction. That is like the, cause I'm like dying. Like,
yeah,
cool. That's awesome news, man. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm pumped for that. You know, and I'll hopefully get some more at-home workouts coming, you know, next year. But right now, it's going to be a lot of work put into this gym app, and I know there's other instructors working on at-home workouts also. And Rebecca has her splits kind of constantly coming out, which people love. So, but I'm super pumped for this, to be able to take people in the gym and getting some really well thought out guided workouts.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, is there anything you mentioned, Rebecca? Is there anything that we talked about that you would say is like different or specific for women who are strength training? So, like one of the things I hear from my wife, from other friends, like my wife's really into bar. She does bar like 5 days a week or something like that, and that's really good. I think it's all body weight exercises. I actually never went to one of the classes with her, but I think what I hear from some of my female friends is that I don't want to like lift too many weights because I don't want to get big. Like I don't want to get big, you know, like what's your overall thought on that? Any thoughts you would share with our female listeners on this?
Yeah, sure. So the fear of getting bulky has been, you know, around for decades as far as females picking up weights, lifting weights. You have to work really hard and eat a lot of food to really gain weight. It's, you know, like you see these bodybuilders that get big and jacked. That is a ton of work, a ton of food, a ton of calories. So what I always say, and with my female clients over the years, like there is differences. There's hormonal differences. There's different, especially if women are perimenopause, like there's different things that are going on in your body. Strength training is a key to maintaining, you know, balanced hormones at some level, osteoporosis with the bone density. Women, just as important as men, to maintain some lean muscle mass on their body to be able to function in daily life. And, you know, Rebecca has this great thing. She's doing a ton of lifting. She does the hiking boot camps and her hikes. So she's really big into, and she's got a great following from it because it's very effective, thoughtful, and safe of the walking, the hiking, even the rucking, that type of thing where you're being a little bit easier on your joints. But you're getting a high output of cardio in, and then you're stressing your joints in a very productive way, weightlifting, right? Lifting dumbbells, you know, she has a low impact cardio. So I'd say whether you're doing the bar classes or some sort of dance class, and I say this for women, but for guys too, guys, get out and dance, go take the bar class. It is some of the
I need to go. I'm sure it'll crush me.
All those little micro nuance movements that you do in bar class, and the coordination you get from taking a step class or a dance class, have immense benefits for men also. So, you know, you have to be a little bit trial and error with your own self. Okay. If you're somebody who you go in the gym and you lift weights for 3 days and somehow you know, all of a sudden your traps are like the Hulk, like, okay, let's figure out how to work around the, you know, how to work in a way that we can still get the quality lifting in and keep your physique the way you want it to. But the fact that you're going to pick up a set of dumbbells and do some strength classes and all of a sudden blow up like a bodybuilder, it's so far off from the truth. And, you know, if you're going to put on a lot of muscle, you need a lot of calories. So the nutrition comes into it also. I'm not going to get too deep into the nutrition here about what people should or shouldn't be doing, but just know you need a big calorie surplus mean, you have to eat a lot more calories than your body needs just to survive if you're going to gain any muscle mass. So there are far and beyond more benefits from lifting weights intelligently, but keeping it in your diet once, ideally 2 or 3 times a week. And then figuring out whatever type of cardio is working for your body at the time. You know, as women especially tend to age, the pounding of running can sometimes catch up. And so if you love running, maybe get your 1 or 2 runs in a week, and the rest of it you're hiking or walking at an incline or walking with a little bit of a rucksack on or something like that to get that cardio sweat going, but be a little bit easier on the joints.
Yeah. Cool. I love that. Yeah. Some of my favorite voices to listen to in kind of the fitness, health and fitness world are Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who's got a great podcast. And then I don't know if you've heard Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. She was on the Andrew Huberman podcast recently. Both of them are big advocates for strength training for women and for high protein consumption. So like, I think a lot of the experts that I listen to are talking about, you know, like 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight for men and women.
Yep.
And I think I'm no expert here, but like in terms of like some of the people that I really respect listening to, like it seems to me that for women could definitely, you know, I think to your point, like, you know, I think you could probably lift weights multiple times a week, eat a lot of protein, and still not get quote unquote big. You probably really need to be in calorie surplus, and that's different than having high protein intake. So I like all your advice on that front. I could spend another hour with you talking about nutrition, but in the interest of time, and I think I told you I'd get you out of here in relatively efficient manner here. So I'm probably going to skip that part of our discussion today. Maybe we'll do a part 2 at some point and go deep on nutrition. But let me just ask you 1 or 2 more things before we get you out of here. So is there anything I would note that, you know, anybody who, you know, does classes with you or Rebecca or follows you both on social media, obviously you can see that you're both in incredible shape. You both have working out as part of your job. So that, I guess, probably helps the cause. But is there anything else that you or Rebecca do that's like daily practices in your life that you think are just super important to kind of round out your physical and mental health?
Yeah. I mean, you know, as far as the physical side of things, I like to hang and I like to do a handstand almost every day.
Okay. I think I just saw that on Instagram, like doing the handstand in the green room or something like that.
Whether I put it in my warm-ups or if I just like just getting the blood flowing in the head and kind of keeping, I just like to bring that back around.
Nice. I want to see you still doing that at like age 80, you know.
I mean, so if there's one trick I have left over from gymnastics, it's always going to be generally like I can hold a handstand and walk around for a few minutes on that. So one thing that's like riding a bike. Yeah, I enjoy that. You know, I would say just sticking with the little things. When I'm really good about doing my ankle drills, my little shoulder drills, a little extra stretching, my low back and my core position stuff. It takes 10 minutes, but the little things that you do to allow you to continue to push the intensity, it's going to be a little different for everybody. You know, some people might need to stretch more. Some people might need to do a little bit more specific core work or balance work. You know, in my class, I'm always having you stand on one foot for a couple minutes at some point during the class, usually.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Yep.
But the little things as we get older go a long, long way into making us feel healthy, feel, you know, pain-free, and feel like we can move and push our bodies the way we want to. So I know it's not a specific answer for everybody, but figure out, whether working with somebody or doing some reading or on your own, like figure out what are the 2 or 3 or 4 little things that I know I need to do just to keep the little nagging shoulder or
Mhm.
the foot that's a little bit, the Achilles, like, what are the things I need to do for 5 or 10 minutes a day, and do those. And if it's in your routine, uh, if you have a routine where you journal or you meditate or whatever you do in the morning, or if you tack it onto your workout as part of the warm up, but make it part of your routine. That 10 minutes a day is going to go a long way in your longevity of fitness. So that's probably the one thing I would say, that when I'm really good at that, everything is feeling better. Everything is feeling more mobile, more manageable, more stronger.
Mhm.
If there's weeks that I kind of slide off of that for whatever reason, things are busy, life, like I notice it, things start getting a little
Yep.
crankier.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
take that 10 minutes for you physically. I know there's a lot out there about, you're doing your journaling, your meditation, the ice baths, whatever it is, something intentional and
Yep.
active.
Yep.
That, this is what I need to do to keep my ankle feeling good, or to keep my shoulder feeling good. Don't go too many days without doing that. And just the act of coming back to something that may be monotonous, maybe boring, maybe you don't see the instant gratification from it like you do when you get a dumbbell pump. Those are the things that are going to carry over long term. Just like, treating your knowing how much money's in your bank account, all of those little lifestyle things. But the same thing for fitness, and being healthy with your body. The little things go a long way, especially as you're passing 40.
Yeah, love it. That's great advice. And there's so much good content on Peloton for all that too. You and Rebecca actually both have some really good stretches up on the
Stretches,
platform.
mobility classes, all of that stuff. It's really, that's, fountain of life is your fountain of youth. Yeah, like lifting weights, but the water that fountain is, made from, is all those little things that you do outside of the hardcore workout.
Right. Yeah, she's got this 30-minute full body stretch that I've done a bunch of times on the platform. I think you have one too, that I've done yours a bunch too, but she's got one where she's moving her foot in all these directions.
Oh, the ankle card.
Shit, I don't think my foot goes in that direction, but it is good to try.
It's those things are kind of humbling too, because you're like, oh wow, my shoulder kind of should be able to go around that, or not should be, but we're always trying to look at, where's my range at now? Is it appropriate that I work for more range? And again, gently moving your joints through ranges of motion actively is just so important outside of all the hard lifting that we do.
That's it, man. That's great advice. All right. Last question before we get you out of here. My standard closing question. What is one thing that you figured out in life that maybe most others haven't?
That's a great question. I mean, I don't know if I figured this out yet, but it's constantly on my figuring out, is just to laugh more and laugh with the ones you love, and not take a lot of life as seriously as you make it out to be inside your head. So, I think that's something I figured out in the last few years that I'm very aware of. And when I let my guard down, when I open up a little bit, when I just feel a little lighter, laugh a little more, things just don't feel as heavy, and the heavy stuff is much more easily managed outside of that.
Love it. Love it. Well, I think you do a great job bringing that sort of mentality to all your classes. Like we were talking about earlier with your little jokes and things like that. I love them. They land with me. So yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think, that's one thing I've learned probably too, is the more that life can feel as it's play, the better. So if there's a way to make your work feel like play, and sometimes people can be like, this guy's having too good of a time. What is going on here? But you want that's the mentality that you want to cultivate. So
absolutely.
I love that.
And that's a word we didn't touch on today, but maybe for round 2, I'll be happy to, because it was maintaining some sort of play in your life. And kids, that's something, but on your own time, maintaining some sort of play is again, a crucial factor, and just feeling good about what you're doing.
100%. And I've become addicted to pickleball lately, and that's just
nice
wailing balls at my friends. And it is just so fun. It's just so fun. Good, man. Well, I've taken a ton of your time today, but it's been awesome and I really appreciate it. And like I said up front, I really appreciate like the vulnerability and what you've been sharing on Instagram. So everybody, if you're not already following Andy, I'll include all that, all his details in the show notes there to go check that out. But thank you again, man. This has been awesome. Thanks for all you do every day and how much you've taught me. And yeah, I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Truly my pleasure, Greg. Thanks for having me. Always love talking shop, and we'll get around to you sometime soon.
All right, there you have it, my friend. That was Andy Spear. I'll link to his Instagram in the show notes. Go check out all those Spearist posts we mentioned. It's some great stuff that he's sharing there. I'm also going to include in the show notes that weekly workout I went over with Andy. First of all, very cool of him to like take a look at these emails that I sent him over and like diagnose my workout. So I appreciate that. But he seems like he liked it in general. So I will include that in the show notes. If you want to steal that, go for it. Also, just a heads up, as I mentioned in the conversation, I'm now doing the Density 2 4-week workout program with Andy. That's on the Peloton platform. I'm really enjoying that. You can find it under collections. It's 3 30-minute strength workouts per week. And then you do cardio on the other days. It's pretty challenging, honestly, for a 30-minute workout. I have been absolutely gassed at the end of these things. I've done a few more since we recorded this conversation, and I'm about a couple weeks into it now. And I feel like it's working, and I feel like I'm going to see some strength and muscle gains, but like it crushes me after 30 minutes. So that tells me it's doing something. Thanks again to Andy for coming on, and shout out to Stephen Baruch at Midnight Dawn for helping me to make it happen. Appreciate you. Lastly, please remember to subscribe and leave a review if you enjoyed this conversation. Those reviews are gold. So if I can possibly convince you to go and tap on those 5 stars on your podcast player, that would be absolutely huge. Seriously, just do it one time for me. I'll be your best friend forever. And again, if you want more detail on any and all of this, or if you just want to hear from me once every 2 weeks on everything I'm learning from awesome people like Andy on all things fitness, nutrition, productivity, relationships, parenting, basically everything I'm learning and working on and experimenting with myself, I share that in one email every 2 weeks. I don't spam you. It's basically an email that I write to my friends and other people have started subscribing. gregcampion.substack.com, and subscribe there. And the link to that is in my show notes. My friend, that's it. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you next time.